No.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. So excited to have Sadira Yasmine with us today. Hello, Sadira.
Hi, Lynn. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. So, for those of y'all who do not know Sadira, she is a very, very gifted spiritual intuitive who helps women like me and you tap even more into our ability to tune in and listen to our guidance and follow our guidance. And I have had the pleasure of getting to know Sadira over the last, has it been a full year now?
I think so.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah. So Sadira and I were in a women's group together it was all focused on our businesses, and we started in April or May of last year. And I remember Sadira coming on, and we all had to introduce ourselves, and I think we had to do some sort of video. Some video component was part of it because I remember you jumped in and you shared who you were and what you're about, and I immediately was like, I must know her. I was like, I'm pretty sure I reached out, sent a message through Facebook, and I was like, hey, we need to know each other. You're cool. I feel like you'll think I'm cool. So, and then we were able to really, I feel like, cultivate an amazing relationship and friendship. But alongside of being friends, Sadira has also been my coach and has guided me to deepen my relationship to my intuition and my guides. And I'm currently a part of her intuitive mastery course, which I'm really excited for you to talk about at some point. I hope that we'll definitely do that today so everyone can hear about it. So as we are in this conversation, I do invite you all to ask questions and to chime in. I'm going to be monitoring the Facebook group page. We're on Be Live, which is not actually Facebook's platform, but I'm going to make sure that I circle back and check it all out, just in case I miss any comments. But right now, Sadira, I want to hand it to you, and I would love for you to share your story on how you connected more to your ability to listen to your intuition, and kind of where you are now and how you're offering this guidance to beautiful women out in the world.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Oh my gosh, it's quite a story. Where do I start? So for those of you who don't know me, Lynn gave me such an amazing introduction. And it's so a lot of my world is pretty woo-woo. So I would say kind of coming into my intuition for me was sort of like I guess to put it simply, it was sort of acknowledging some psychic gifts that I had. So, so as a kid, I would see spirits. I would kind of tune into things, know things I wasn't supposed to know. And for most of my life, I hated it. It would get me in trouble. I was scared. I felt like I was haunted, and I didn't understand it at all. So I lived a pretty normal life. It's not something I really talked about to anybody. I went to school, I went to grad school. I had a whole normal professional life. I was living in Washington, D.C., and I was going through a period where I was really overworking. And so I started to get into meditation. I started to get into kind of like spiritual workshops. And for me, it sort of helped me realign with kind of who I am and my gifts. And so things started opening up more, like these things I had been avoiding just sort of came out and I couldn't avoid it anymore. So it started to become more and more of my life until I eventually left my day job. And now I just sort of do woo-woo stuff all day, every day, full time. So that's kind of, for me, that was a big part of my path. And it's been really interesting because I do some things that are sort of like psychic development, but I also get really excited about helping women to listen to themselves because I think that's just such a big struggle for a lot of us. And we talk about women's intuition, and I think we all naturally have it, but it can be really easy to kind of doubt yourself or look outside of yourself, sort of second guessing what's your intuition. Or maybe we feel it and then our brain kicks in and it gets anxious and, we're just second guessing a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I would say part of my path as well was, even though I had kind of these, I guess, psychic gifts, I was still sort of receiving information or my own insight from outside of myself. And I started to have the awareness that, that I'm also very wise. And I know what's good for me. I don't have to ask like, a spirit guide or an ancestor or something all the time. Like, I know, I have intuition. Yeah, so it was really just my own kind of personal learning journey on how to connect with that. So yeah, and so now the work that I do with people, it's kind of a combination. It's a lot of like, I want people to be comfortable connecting with spirit guides or ancestors if they feel called, but I also want, people to feel really comfortable listening to themselves.
I think that's such a beautiful offering, because I feel like even in the world of moving into self-realization and self-help, and tapping into more of the woo-woo, which, by the way, on this channel, woo-woo is the way. So embraced and welcomed here. But there's this element that, like, we start to tap into ourselves, but there is this world out there that's really embracing guidance from spirits and angels, and which I think is really fabulous and super interesting. But I think it also steers away again that it's not us and that we have to go reach out outside of ourselves. And I've been a real cheerleader in us getting back to listening to ourselves, trusting ourselves, not thinking that it's outside of us.
Yeah.
So I'm so appreciative that you are also pulling that in as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love doing that. And so I feel like the kind of connecting with your guides and that sort of thing is fun and it's a tool. And I like to use it as a way to kind of affirm like what we already know and what we already feel. And that's what comes through a lot. It's interesting because I do sort of, there are different things that I do, but sort of my bread and butter, my like day-to-day life is I do a lot of readings. And something that comes through really commonly is people are, they're struggling with a decision and they want some insight into their decision. And it always comes out that the more we talk about it, they're like, oh yeah, I knew that. So it's like, we know, we just have to believe that we know and trust it.
Exactly. I went through a yoga therapy training. Man, it's been many, many years now, but it was called Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy. And one reason why I was drawn to study that particular modality was because its message was all about listening to your own inner wisdom and guidance, and then taking that wisdom and actually following through with it. And like you're saying, it's kind of like, yes, I've known that, right? Like, it's like, you already know. Yes.
Yeah. And I like to tell people to sort of play with it, because I think, one of the things that comes through in not listening to ourselves, it's almost like we put all this pressure, like if we, make a wrong decision or the world is going to fall apart. And I think if we see it as something as sort of like a learning process, or even something that can be fun, something that we can be curious with, I think that can be really helpful.
Oh my gosh, that's such a great addition to it, right? Like letting yourself, I'm starting to use this word more and more, but flirt with it, like let yourself be playful and try on the wisdom, and don't think it's meant to be this like stick and land experience, right? Where it's like fixed and it's set, and there's right or wrong. It's like, just let yourself go with the guidance, because sometimes the guidance leads you in a direction that you logically are thinking, this makes no sense. And then when you follow through, you're like, oh, now it all comes around to making sense. So just letting yourself play and following the guidance and not getting caught up in, is this going to be right or wrong or whatever? Yeah. It's so powerful.
Yeah. I love the way you just worded that. Yeah. And I feel like it comes up a lot too, when women are sort of doubting their intuition, where, maybe we've had some trauma in our lives. Maybe we've had people in our lives who kind of, I guess, made us doubt our intuition. So there might be, reasons that we have a hard time trusting that we know what we know. And so I would say like the playing with it and allowing yourself to kind of heal and grow and change is a big part of the process. because I can definitely give some tips at some point in the call for getting in touch with this. But yeah, I would say like the biggest takeaway is to allow yourself to make mistakes, to forgive yourself, to trust that ultimately you're on the right path. Because I will say that's also something that really comes up very commonly in readings is this reassurance. Yeah. And it's amazing to me how many people really need that. It's like I'm getting this, I'll get it to tell them that they're on the right path and everything will be okay. And it like changes people's worlds to hear that. And it's something that I wish other people or more people felt really connected to. Like you're exactly where you're meant to be when you're meant to be there. I mean, really, all of us are.
Yeah, I went to a hypnosis. It was my first time ever going. And funny enough, the message was I needed to trust myself. That was like the message that came through and what was recorded. And so even myself, who I've been on a journey of connecting and tuning in and listening, there's still that hesitation. There's still that resistance. And I even think it's possibly passed down from my lineage, right? Like I do feel like, and you can speak to this a little bit, that we are in this new, we're in a shift that I think we're, coming back to a place that I believe is really our home. But we've been out of that place for a really long time, for generations. And there's this paradigm shift that's happening, and we're all like, there's still some timidness around it.
Yeah.
And those of us who are being called to step into this new belief and this new way of being, I think we are being asked to really trust, like rootedly trust it, so that we can really stand fully in it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I love that you just talked about that. It's something else that comes up commonly in readings, and it's funny because I'm not just here to just say like, oh, this is what comes up in readings, but really what I want to say is, if you're feeling drawn to be watching this, then these messages are for you. So really think about like what's coming through to talk about right now. And something I was thinking about when you were just saying that was, there is sort of this dynamic right now that's coming up a lot where I'll sit down to do a reading with someone and their spirit guides just want to acknowledge all of the work that they've done, which is amazing. So if you're on this call, thank you for all of the work that you've done. And it's really true in my understanding and my experience, that as we work on ourselves, we're really cleaning up our entire ancestral line. We're really peeling ourselves out of a lot of karma. And it's come through a lot that we actually have a lot more freedom than we realize. And it's basically what you just explained so well, where it's like we have this idea that, things are fated and we have to experience certain things. And it might have even been true when we were born that, maybe there were things that we were going to take on in our life. But there's been so much shifting in the consciousness, and there's been so much healing for those of us who are sort of light workers. And that doesn't mean you have to consciously be a light worker to be a light worker. So I'll pause for a moment and explain what that means. So my understanding of light workers are those of us who are old souls who have taken on a lot of healing of ourselves, of our family lineage, and we're bringing in a lot of love and light into the so most people I come across, certainly everyone who's drawn to listen to this call, I would say would be considered a light worker. So to get back to what I was saying, we really have a lot of freedom right now. There's a lot that we don't have to experience that maybe our ancestors did. The stories that we as human beings are living are different than they were a generation or two ago.
Yes. Even just in my personal life, every day I wake up and saying, this can be easier and more abundant. Just creating more ease, more playfulness, more fun, which it rubs up against what I've grown up knowing, which is everything's like, in order to be successful, it has to be super hard, right? Like the idea of like spaciousness, and it can be slow and still like all the things that I feel like I am. Yes, it's like we're stepping into a whole different agreement. It's like a collective agreement that we're shifting.
Yeah, that's very eloquently put. And I can relate to that so much because my earlier life, I took on a hard life in my earlier life. I had a lot of trauma. I had, I felt like I had to work really hard. I took on a lot of beliefs about life as a struggle, and people with money are jerks. I was going to say a different word, but there's a lot of, I feel like I had a lot of programming, and it took me a lot of self-awareness and a lot of work to pull myself out of that. And I love that you have that little mantra every morning, because it's so true for all of us that it's time. We really do have a lot of freedom to pull ourselves out of these old paradigms. Yeah. And with that said, I do want to say that it can take some work. It can take some healing. I don't want people to, be hard on themselves or feel like, oh, like other people are snapping their fingers and everything's working out and that's not what's happening for them. Because I will say that I sort of engaged in like years of my own healing process and years of my own growth, and I'm still in it. And I will also say that I've, recently feel like I've just hit a different stage in life where I'm actually believing, I'm believing what I'm telling people, like we are free. We really can create these things that we want.
It's so true. I've thought of this a lot because I work with many women who have known for a while it's time for a shift. And they've played in realms of connecting to how to show up to that shift, but intellectually understood it more than necessarily cellularly getting it.
Yeah.
And even though they intellectually know it and they're ready and they're showing up, it's almost like untangling a necklace that has been like, when you pull it out of your like jewelry box, right? Yeah. And like you all of a sudden think it's like going to be undone, and then like it messes up again, right? So I feel like I'm so happy that you also keep it real in that it takes time, and it's like give yourself grace and permission to know that the whether we call it the untethering of where we've been and opening up to where we're going, or new paradigm shift, like it just takes time. There's, a lot can show up. And so those of y'all who are part of this journey with us, because we're both still very much on it. Yeah. Like stay in it.
Yeah. I thank you for saying that. Yeah. Cause I feel like that's a big lesson for me personally, is like, it's like I've done so much work, and then I think I'm all, I'm like in this great place. I'm like, oh, I manifested everything I want. Here I am. And then something happens and it's like, oh my God, I'm like, oh, didn't I heal this? So yeah, it's nice to be able to acknowledge to people that it's a continuous process.
I think what happens, and tell me if this has happened to you, where you get to a place where it's okay, like that it's going to happen, and there's this element of acceptance that I think also creates another level of freedom around it. Whereas like I'm not so disappointed anymore. I'm like, oh right, of course, like here we are, and a little bit, somewhat a little bit more intrigued. Oh no, we lost you. Oh, there you are. Okay. I was like, yeah. So I'm not sure if that happened to you so much.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm like, wait, what were you saying? I got distracted by no. Yes. Yeah. I will agree with that. I would say that I'm in a place recently. There could be moments of frustration. I'll say I had a relationship pattern pop up that I was like, oh man, I thought I got over this. But I feel like I've done really well at, releasing some attachment and just being really curious.
Yeah.
And then I find myself going into judgment or like, because I struggle with sort of the judgment of myself that comes up a lot. So sometimes things will pop up and I'll be like, oh, didn't I heal that or what? Like, I'm just like, and so I'll have that moment, but then I've gotten pretty good at being able to transition into just being more curious with it. Like, okay, maybe why is this showing up? Or
exactly,
what is this exactly? Or maybe it's just a glitch. Maybe it's like, sometimes I think when we're healing something and sort of unraveling some patterns and programming, things can show up. And I think a lot of people like to say they're being tested, but I like to view it, and maybe you are, but I like to view it like, because it's on its way sort of up and out of your system, that it's like, so it's just kind of showing up as it's on its way out. It doesn't mean that you haven't done the work, doesn't mean that you're not healed. It could be a little bit of a nudge to like go to an even deeper level, but it's kind of like, yeah, so I feel like I've also had the awareness of just accepting it in a different way instead of beating myself up like, didn't I heal this? Or why does this keep happening? It's like, all right, maybe it's on its way up and out. Maybe there's another layer to me for me to look at. That doesn't mean that I'm not on the right track.
Absolutely. I've also heard in that exact same understanding that when you are about to make a shift, that the last little bit of like residue of anything that doesn't serve you anymore in the new paradigm will show up, will like magnify almost. And you're like, whoa. And it's sort of like giving you that extra motivation to really address it, to let it go, because your time, it's like ready to shift. Like it's your time, but it doesn't work. That old thinking or that way of being won't work in the new way of being and thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I want to mention too, as we're talking about all of this sort of self-healing, I think sometimes people put, I don't know, a lot of pressure on themselves, or they have this idea of what that's supposed to be. And I want to kind of put people's minds at ease that like, it's really common in my readings. And so it's feeling like it's also meaningful for those of you on this, that it's like we are healing ourselves out of our ancestral stories and, some of these old paradigms without even being consciously aware. So there are people like me who it's like, I'm having conversations with guides and, whatever, and they're telling me what's going on, but not everybody needs that. Not everybody wants that. That's not everyone's path. But I wanted to bring this up because I want people to feel like, just to know that they are doing this, whether they're consciously aware of it or not. So as you're healing yourself, whatever that looks like for you, it might be therapy, it might be yoga, it might be that you like to hike and, that's your version of self-healing. Yeah. So as we're taking care of ourselves and healing ourselves, we're just sort of naturally kind of pulling ourselves out of this. So it's not something you have to like necessarily,
focus on and be like really like, yes, that's so helpful. Knowing my personality, I like dove right in and felt like I had to go like dig through everything and look through everything. And I'm releasing myself from that more and more and more. Yeah. So Sadira, I wanted to circle to, we had a High Vibe member comment on our post last week when we shared that you were coming on. So I'm going to read it and then let you give any insight. So she said, I'm excited for the live event on Monday. And I'm not sure, Beth Cosi, if you're still here, let us know. Give us a hello or what's up. So my question concerns personal potential. I've been given the gifts of life-changing business opportunity and connection. I love and fully believe in the value and mission of both my companies and do well, but I just can't get past where I am. I feel stuck, even though it may not seem so on the outside. I know there's more to do, more to gain, more to share. Hashtag tired of the treading. Thanks, Beth. Yes, so Beth is on. So Sarah, I'll let you kind of share your insight there, and then I'll facilitate any commenting back and forth.
Okay, great. So I feel like there's a few layers, like as you were rereading that, and I'm glad you reread it because I was like, I know I read it, but I don't remember everything. Okay, so thank you. So I was feeling sort of a few layers to it as you were talking about it. I think one of them, and I so appreciate kind of the sort of the arch of the story where it's like, this is something a lot of people can relate to. I love that you're acknowledging that even though kind of on the surface or on some level, it's like, yeah, you have your act together. It's like, there's still this like, oh, I should be doing more. It's like this, it might be a feeling pulled. It might also be a little bit of self-judgment, which I think we all have. Like,
absolutely. I'm trying to facilitate on the screen. Okay, keep going.
Especially those of us who are very successful, like there is this drive that we have, and I think it can make us sort of naturally like almost be critical or almost always feel like we have to be going somewhere, and almost like where we're at isn't good enough. I know this is something I personally fall into a lot. I've been working on this a lot over the last week. It's like this feeling of like, If I have a goal, I hit it, and then it's like I move it up. Like I don't pause and be present and think like, God, how amazing it is that I'm here. So that's something I'm personally working on. So I feel like that was a layer to it that I wanted to address. I also wanted to thank you for being vulnerable in the share of, it's like, even though on the outside I have everything together, on the inside it's like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Where should I be? That's very human and it's very normal. And I feel like that's something so many of us can relate to. It's something, so I had a call this morning with a client who I would consider to be, fairly high profile. And I was forgetting that it was a video call. I was like cleaning and just doing other things. And my hair, so I just did my hair to get on here. But my hair before this call was up in this weird, like mad scientist thing with a clip, and I, didn't have my makeup on, and I got on, I was like, oh, it's a video. And I made some comment about like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't look put together. I've had one thing after the other this morning. And she's like, you know what, we're all just doing the best we can do. And I was thinking like, I wonder if that'll come up later on my conversation with Lynn, because I just felt so wise. Like, it's like, we're all just doing the best we can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I feel like that's kind of a layer of what's coming up as I'm tuning into advice for you. So another layer of what's coming up, and I do have some feelings, so I'll get there. I'll get to some of the advice, but another layer that's coming up that I would love to talk about is sometimes we hit what feels like sort of a plateau. So it's like we're building and we're moving and we're achieving, and then things kind of get to where they are, and it's like, well, what the heck happens now? And then you're kind of in a straight line. And when you're used to working hard or struggling or feeling this like I'm building and achieving, it's a little bit like, what do I do? Yeah. So I wanted to address that because I can feel a layer of that in that story as well, where it's like, what do I do now? I'm not struggling anymore. Yeah, and it can be a really amazing place to be. We can do a lot of sort of introspection when we're in that place. We can learn to be present when we're in that place. And we can do a lot of integrating. So there's a lot that kind of goes on subconsciously, energetically, psychologically, like when we're in the grind. And so when we have a moment to pause, we can kind of allow it to process, and almost like all those things can catch up with where we're at, and then we can take on something else. But I think for those of us that are achievers, that it can feel really hard to be in a plateau. Yeah. So I wanted to acknowledge that too.
Absolutely.
Woo. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm talking fast. All right, let me.
Those are some very great layers. I feel like they encapsulate a lot of what was shared in that post.
Yeah. And I again, really appreciate the question, because it feels like it's so relevant for so many of us. And I would say that these answers aren't necessary, they're not just for Beth, it's for, kind of everyone. Yeah. Anyone who's watching this, and, we're all drawn to this video for a reason. And I want to say that I am also feeling, so, what might be a little bit of specific guidance. So let me kind of tune into that for just a moment. So it's feeling like what I'm feeling for you feels related to something you're already doing. I feel, okay, so something that I'm getting for you is that you're very good at making accessible things that might not automatically feel accessible for everyone. So it's feeling related to like mindfulness, like that type of thing, like the sort of yoga mindfulness. What it feels like is, so there are people who are really into that. There are people who are sort of open to that, maybe dabble in it. And then there are people who just feel like even yoga is just like woo-woo, or it's not something that they're necessarily going to do. But something that I'm feeling for you, Elizabeth or Beth, I'm like, I don't remember what you go by, but I want to say Beth. Okay. So something that I'm feeling for you is it's almost like you're naturally really good at like bridging that gap. And something I feel for you in the future. So something to kind of think about, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have like every answer of every step of how you're getting there right now. Although we could talk a little more later if you'd like some help with that, because I love to
I will make sure everyone
Yeah.
has their information if they
Yeah.
want a reading with you, because she's
Yeah.
fantastic, if you can't already tell. Okay.
Yeah, because I get really excited about kind of bridging the like, what are the practical steps and what's the vision and what are your blocks, and like I like geek out on that stuff. So anyway, I don't want to get distracted. I want to finish telling you what's coming to me.
Yeah.
So basically, what it's feeling like, there's something coming through for you about really allowing yourself to be visible and really allowing yourself to use your voice. And these are really common, almost like blocks or things that most of us who are in this kind of work come up against. So what I'm feeling is maybe just a little bit of a block there, where it's like, yeah. So I feel like there's some opportunity to reach kind of wider audiences, probably do some networking. I don't know if you ever do like this type of thing. It's feeling like getting yourself out there more. And again, there's kind of this theme of you making sort of like mindfulness or that sort of thing, like very accessible to people. It's like you have this way of just making it almost like common knowledge, or it's like the way that you break it down or the way that you approach it is like everyone can do it. And there's something really, really special about that. So I would say kind of get that out there more.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what Beth does?
No.
So Beth Kosi she's local here to Charleston. So here's a quick plug for the amazing Beth Kosi on the High Vibe channel. She runs Bindi Brewski Yoga, where she takes yoga to breweries. So they're doing yoga before they have a beer tasting. And so she's done an amazing job of connecting people to more yoga mindfulness practice in their environment. Like, she's been very much about bridging that. She's also a Rodan and Fields consultant. And so she was able to go out to a sales conference and actually teach a yoga practice recently.
Oh, nice.
And I feel like what you're saying is just calling her to do more of that, connecting her ability and her skill with all of these communities. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. Yeah. And even when you were saying right now about the Rodan Fields, my first thought was like, well, that's not quite and then I was like, oh, but she could bring mindfulness into that. And then you said that she did, and it's like, oh yeah, more of that too. And it feels like if there's anything else that pops up, like, because it really just feels like this. Yeah, I love that that's what's going on, because it feels like more of that. Like, it really feels like bringing sort of this mindfulness into like almost like everyday life, and to people who aren't. I feel like, so it's, it's so easy for me in kind of the circles I run in, because I'm so woo-woo, that it's like, oh, everyone does yoga and everyone meditates, but that's, not everybody does. Like, there are so many people who have judgments about it, kind of like resistance to it. And yeah, and I love that, that Beth is already getting out there doing that, because that's really what it feels like. It feels like reaching some of those people in ways that they can access it.
Absolutely. Oh, she's so gifted too. So, yeah, I think that's fantastic. And Beth, if you're still on, feel free to drop in a question or two and ask, and I'll facilitate. So Sadira, I know you wanted to offer some tips on how to connect to our intuition more, and maybe even lead us through some experience. So you can tell me what you would like to do.
Yeah, so let me feel into some tips for those of you who are watching or will be watching this. There are common themes that come through, but I like to kind of feel into what's good for who I'm talking to. So let me just kind of feel into that for a moment. So I'll give that first, and then I would love to do a little guided meditation. I love doing sort of guided healing meditations. I think they're really powerful. Yeah.
And while you're kind of considering Sadira, I want to say, having been a student of Sadira's, I have loved and appreciated how she has shown up to the learning process. I think one thing that Sadira absolutely embodies is more of a feminine approach to leading and guiding us through learning, where we show up and she'll have something planned, but then she always tunes in and connects to make sure that what she is going to offer really aligns with those that are part of the experience, which is so different than what we typically go through in a learning experience. So just like what you're doing now, Sadira, like, let me check in, make sure. It's just so beautiful to witness and watch. And it's so considerate. And I just love that. And I think that's a feminine quality that we have been missing all these years in how we learn and show up. It's much more organic and much more real and genuine and authentic. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah. And I don't want to get off track, but I'm like, oh, another topic I love talking about. Like I love because it's, it's been a big part of my path, and I appreciate that you see that in me, because it's something that I really want to kind of embody and create in my life. And it's, it's something that I feel like is really an opportunity in the world right now, especially for those of us who are sort of run businesses or in corporations. It's like we've been, so historically, we've sort of done things in this very masculine energy, which is also amazing, which is like the building and achieving and, setting these goals. And it's like the logical steps of how we're getting there. And then the feminine, it's, we all have both. So we all have both masculine and feminine energy. But again, the feminine is more of like receiving and allowing and flowing. And I love playing with the balance of that. So, so thank you.
We'll just continue to bring you back on. Have these fabulous conversations.
Okay, well then now let me get into the tips for intuition. Okay, so the big one that's coming through is grounding. And this we'll probably do this as a first step in the guided meditation we do, because I always love to start my calls this way, because I want everyone to feel very present. So it can commonly happen when we are very busy, we're focused on things outside of ourselves. Maybe we have kids and jobs and people to take care of and all this going on. It can kind of bring our energy a little bit up and out of ourselves, and our focus becomes very outward, which again can be necessary in life. But this process of grounding really helps you bring your energy back into yourself and kind of brings it down into the earth. So ways to ground. I'm very visual. I like to do a lot of visualizations. So you can imagine roots coming out of the soles of your feet and then kind of going through the earth, connecting to the core of the earth. You can imagine a cord of light just right down the middle of your body, connecting with the core of the earth. These are both really helpful visualizations and just sort of bringing your energy down so it's touching the earth. Being outside a lot can be really grounding. If you garden, that's really grounding, like touching the earth. Being outside without shoes on is really, it's good for you for a lot of different reasons, but it also just energetically helps you just kind of bring yourself back down to earth. And so I would say, even in your day, if you feel yourself getting sort of worked up or agitated or stressed out, it's kind of taking this breath and having this intention, like, oh, okay, bringing my energy back into the earth. And again, those visualizations are really easy, quick ways to do that. And so this being grounded helps us connect to our intuition, because as we're sort of subconsciously, energetically focusing out so much, it makes it harder for us to really listen to ourselves and feel sort of solid and stable and grounded in ourselves and our own energy. So grounding really helps that.
Yeah.
I also like, and again, we'll probably start the meditation off this way, kind of being aware of your energy, body, and attachments. And that's pretty woo-woo. So, but this could also just be a visualization. So it's really common, especially for women, especially for those of us who feel responsible for everyone and everything. It's sort of common for us to develop energetic attachments. So, which it might even look like a cord. I don't know if anyone's heard of cord cutting, but it's like we can get what looks like a thread or a cord from our energy field to someone else's. And that attachment, that connection, can make it easier for them to sort of vampire our energy. It can throw us a little off balance emotionally, energetically, because then we're feeling something for someone else and it's not really our responsibility to do that. So I like to advise people to cut cords. It's actually very, very easy, pretty simple. You can really just have the intention. I like to wave my hand because it's like this, like I'm cutting it and cutting any cord. So it's just kind of this intention of like, I'm removing any kind of connections to anyone else, any attachments, any cords.
I can already see the whole group watching right now being like,
yeah, and I hope so.
All right, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like it helps to do this, but really having that strong intention can be really helpful. And I you know, a lot of times when you're new to it, I would say maybe every day, maybe just for a minute every day, like visualize roots coming out of you, do this quick sweep through anything that's not mine, removing, I don't need to carry this. And I like to tell people with cords, especially, like if you're cutting the cord, you're not cutting someone out of your life. They're still there. It's just changing the dynamic, and it's changing how you're carrying it, because you don't need to carry it. So we can help people without energetically taking everything on. Yeah. So it just helps you to be aware. That kind of helps you to create a boundary. Mm-hmm. So another visualization that I like, speaking of boundaries, I'm like, how much time do we have? Am I going well over? So another visualization that I like, I just keep talking and talking. Another visualization that I like is kind of bringing in, actually either visualizing a bubble around you, which literally can help you seal your energy field, or bringing in what I like to think of as divine light, like kind of this white light, like pillar or tube or something that's just like sealing you off. Yeah. And again, that doesn't mean that you're not interacting with people. It doesn't mean you're not being, you know, empathetic to things, but it can help kind of create this boundary in your energy field. And even if you're more someone who likes to think about, like, you know, think about it from a psychological aspect, it's like subconsciously or something, you're as you're visualizing this, it's helping you to set that boundary.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So to me, these are like the top two. Oh, okay. One more piece of advice, and then I'll stop talking. But I would say the top two. It's like grounding your energy, making sure that you're kind of in your own energy. Mm-hmm. And then I also love to tell people to free write, because that's kind of that's like the number one tip that comes from spirit guides. If you want to connect to spirit guides, if you want to connect to like the universe, your spirit guides, any higher wisdom. Mm-hmm. Just letting come out what comes out. And then I also feel like there is some, you know, this sort of subconscious aspect of your own intuition that comes out when you're free writing. And the handwriting feels really valuable for a lot of people. Like it's this process of just like letting it flow, kind of letting it out. Like it can be a little bit of a purge, but it can also be like, if you're just writing and not judging it, not thinking about what you're writing, you might be surprised at what actually comes out.
Yeah. I use the brain dump technique, and I find it so powerful, just to like drop everything. And it's almost like it's decluttering what doesn't serve me anymore in my headspace, but also starts to bring forward things that are really nuggets, like amazing gems that are in there.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. So we have grounding, we have like energetic sweeping to kind of clear our energy. We could do that with golden light as well. And also, what was the last one you just said?
The free writing, the brain dump.
Free writing, which I just covered.
Free writing, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Free writing.
Yeah, it's really like if you just don't judge it and you just let it flow. Yeah. It's such a good way to kind of get stuff out and see where you're actually at. Yeah.
And it's also that practice is also very powerful for releasing tension in the body, physical tension and such. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready for a meditation now?
Yes, if we have time. I'm suddenly aware of I'm like, wow, we've really been going. It's been fun.
It's been so fun. And it would be an honor to have you take this group through meditation. You have the most amazing guided downloads of meditations. Before we jump in, I wanted to circle back. Beth Kosi said, everything you said is right on. I just started crying tears of joy. How awesome. I can't wait to reach out to you personally. So thank you, Beth, for opening up to this group and allowing Sadira to connect with your spirit and soul through this channel. I will definitely make sure y'all are connected. So what I'm going to do for this meditation is I'm going to remove my video just so it will be just you, and then I'll come back to close up the call.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to
actually do it. I feel always like really like awkward when I'm like doing it. My eyes are closed right there. So I want to, this is self.
All right. So I'm going to invite everyone to just kind of like, I don't know, move in any way that feels good. If you need to stretch, if you need to shimmy a little, if you need to stretch your legs, just a little bit of movement to help us come into our bodies, help us be present. We've been talking about all these big, deep things, emotional things. And so now we're just coming back to stillness. Oh, if you need to breathe anything out, let it out. I know it helps me to sigh. Whew. All right. Okay, so we're going to start. I invite you to close your eyes, get comfortable. Oh, we're going to tune into the earth below us. Mother Earth is a loving, inspired divine being who wants to support you on your path. Allow yourself to ground and connect with the earth more. I want you to imagine what the core of the earth looks like. I'm seeing a beautiful white, silver, and kind of a light blue mix. I'm seeing this really glittery, beautiful mix of light that the core of the earth is holding for us today. Tune into what that feels like for you. It's nurturing, it's peaceful, it's supportive. It's like an old friend. And now the core of the earth sprouts roots. These roots come up through the layers of the earth and they touch the soles of your feet. And we're just going to sit there for a moment and allow it to just pull there for just a moment, wiping away anyone else's energy you might have absorbed into the soles of your feet. Wiping away any physical ailments you might be holding in the soles of your feet. It's time to let that go. That's not yours anyway. And knowing that that's still there, allowing these roots to come up through your legs. They pause for just a moment at your knees, wiping away other people's energy in your knees, washing away any programming that's keeping us from feeling grounded, allowing this beautiful mix of white, silver, and blue, this healing, nourishing energy to just wipe away what isn't serving you. And now it comes up into your hips and it pauses for just a moment in your hips. Oh, you might feel like you need to take a breath here or move just a little bit. We carry a lot of deep, intense stuff in our hips. So this energy is sort of pooling, gathering in our hips and our sacrum and our root chakra, this area of our body. This white, silver, and blue light washing away what is not serving us, removing any cords, removing any programming that isn't serving us that's been stuck there. Letting that go, sending it back to the earth. She wants to take this for you. She can transmute it for you. You don't need to carry this. This isn't yours. Oh, and now bringing this energy up just a little bit. It pauses in your sacral chakra. Ooh, in your womb area, in this creative power center that we have in our abdomen. Ooh. Men have a center there too. Just allowing it to gather there. Beautiful white, silver, blue energy. Washing away what's ready to release. Washing away this resistance to your creative potential. Allowing yourself to move into a fuller expression of your creative potential. Ooh, taking a deep breath. It's still working its magic as we bring it up. And we're actually going to pause right where your belly button is. There's a chakra there. It's an umbilical chakra. This connects us to karma, to family lineage. Whew, so we're going to take a big sigh there if you need to let something out there, because that can be a big one for some of us. So we're visualizing this beautiful white, silver, blue light, mix of light. It feels purifying and healing and balancing. And we're allowing it to sweep away any karma that it's time for us to let go of that's been stuck there. Any family stories that are not your stories, you don't need to carry this. It's not your responsibility. Whew, letting that out. And that's still working some magic. And now we're bringing it up to your solar plexus, the space in between your navel and your heart. And we're calling that white, blue, silver energy to clear out any blocks we have to standing in our personal power. We are powerful beings. You are powerful. It is time for you to step into this power. Beautiful goddess, there's so much that you are bringing into the world. Ooh, just taking a breath there. As any programming that isn't serving us is removed. Ooh. All right, that feels like a big one for a lot of us. Knowing that it's still working its magic on your solar plexus, we're now bringing this energy up to your heart. Oh, up to the heart chakra, calling in this beautiful white, silver, and blue light. This mix of purifying light, removing any impurities we've been storing in our heart chakra, any old stories, any old wounds that are not serving us, letting that melt away, sending that back to the earth. She's happy to transmute this for you. Whew, again, if you need to sigh, let it out. All right. We're going to pause for just a moment. Ooh. So knowing that it's still working its magic in your heart, we're now bringing it up to the throat chakra, this beautiful white, silver, and blue light. And this might be one where a lot of us feel like we need to be vocal. So if you want to sigh, if you want to let out any noise, I'm the only one that's on speaker right now. No one can hear you. Let it out. So letting this light sort of gather in your throat. Oh, allowing it to release what is not serving you there. You speak truth. You are aligned with who you are meant to be. You have wisdom to share. You are wise, you are powerful, and you have something to say, and it is time to say it. Ooh. And knowing that the energy is still working its magic in your throat, we're going to bring it up to the third eye. This is the space in the middle of your forehead. Visualizing this blue, silver, white light, allowing it to clear away what is not serving you. If there's any trauma stuck here, anything you've seen or experienced that made you want to shut off this being vulnerable, this being open, this seeing of truth, allowing that to sweep away, allowing your resistance to seeing truth to sweep away, knowing that it's safe. We're connected with everything. We are connected with the divine. We're connected with the earth. We're connected with our guides, with angels, with our ancestors, and with ourselves. And it's safe to feel this connection. It's our natural state. So again, just allowing the energy there to clear what is not serving you, and the perfect clearing and balancing for you in this moment. Knowing that it's still working its magic in your third eye, we're bringing it up to the crown chakra, this space at the top of your head. Imagining this pool of silver, white, blue light in your crown chakra, removing any blocks you have to the divine, any blocks you have to your higher self, anything that's blocking you from accessing this connection you have to everything that is, to everything around you. You are a spark of the divine. Oh. And this energy pulls you into alignment. Your chakras are aligned. You are in direct connection to the earth and the divine and your higher self above you. You are pulled into alignment. You are pulled onto your highest path. It is time for you to step forward in this powerful way and speak your truth. You are a gift to the world. You are exactly where you are meant to be when you are meant to be there. Just taking a breath into that just for a moment. Ooh. And now we're imagining that this white, silver, and blue light moves all the way out into your aura, out through your energy field, so that you are carrying this with you. Sweeping away what is not serving you, sending it back to the earth. She's happy to take this for you. Just another deep breath as that energy really sets in. All right, and now tuning back into those roots from your feet to the earth, that connection you have to the earth. Feel your feet on the ground. Become aware of your hands, allowing this blue, silver, and white light to also pull in your hands, wiping away anything that you're carrying, any cords here, any connections to anyone else, allowing that to wash away. Ooh. And now wiggling your hands and feet, starting to come back to your body, really feeling the earth below you. If there's any movement that feels in alignment for you, if there's any noise you want to make, if you need to stretch, whatever helps you come back to your body. It might be helpful to sort of pat yourself, pat your legs, pat your arms, your head, helping you to come back to your body. And we're calling back all pieces of ourselves with highest potential. Whew. All right.
Mm,
Let's see. Are you like, oh,
so
okay, there you
good.
go. Where are you?
Oh my gosh, it's so fantastic for me. I'll speak to my experience, and I would love for anybody who was able to go through that to share kind of what you were aware of. But Sadira, when I was feeling into the energy coming from the earth in my lower chakras, I felt like the energy of my body like ping ponging and kind of making circles. And I've allowed myself over the years to really open up to that, to not get rigid and contained, because I find that that's the energy. I call it recalibrating. It's like I'm allowing it to kind of get back into the harmony of flow and all that sort of stuff. So it was very, very powerful moving in my lower chakras. And then when we got to the sixth chakra, the third eye, you made a reference to angels and guides and our ancestors. And I can't recall exactly how you said it, but something like hit me more than it's ever hit me before, as far as connecting to wisdom beyond myself. So I'm interested to see what's gonna show up with that connection, because that was really it was quite subtle. It was really profound but very subtle. So it feels like it just like kind of like it's like a little pinprick of wisdom right there.
I
So
love
I'll keep you posted.
yeah, I would love to hear. I love that. Yeah, I would. So if you remember everything we went through, I feel like this is just a really valuable tool to have, bringing it up through your chakras, connecting to sort of the divine, to something bigger than yourself. It really helps us to feel sort of aligned and stable and calm and grounded in ourselves. So I would say, oop, am I still here?
Yes, you're
Okay,
still.
something happened on my screen where I can't see you. Oh, there you are. I'm like, oh no, I just got cut off. Anyway, so it can really help us, and it's funny because I was saying connected, and then all of a sudden,
Connection gone.
you're still there. I see. I was still connected. This is perfect. It's like a perfect symbol. Like sometimes you think you're not connected, but you're always connected. Yes.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, but I just want to say, like, if this is something that you felt really aligned with, whether you felt something dramatic move or maybe you just feel a little more peaceful, whatever happened for you. Yeah, I mean, I would say to keep doing this practice. It really does feel very aligning, very grounding. Um, yeah, yeah, and maybe once a week, maybe once a month, maybe every day, whatever feels good for you.
Yes. So Jennifer Grove said there were a few of my chakras that felt very heavy, closed off, almost that feeling of a really quick pause. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that can definitely happen, especially when you're not used to connecting in this way. And I would definitely invite you to keep moving this practice. And it's interesting because even if you're someone who does something like this every day, like it can feel different every day. Like some days you can feel like, oh, I'm really shut down, I'm not connected. Other days you might do this and you're like, oh, everything's like open and aligned.
Totally.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that awareness because it is really kind of interesting to move through. Like, ooh, how does this feel? Ooh, what's going on there? Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's part of. So I have a group that I teach 6 weeks. It's called the Energy Shift, and one of the things we do is a chakra opener technique. And there's definitely some days that different chakras feel more open and more expansive, and some days they feel really closed off. And what I found is when they feel closed, one is to know that that doesn't mean something's wrong. Like don't impose like it's wrong or bad, but to then sit and listen for a moment and see if there's any guidance of what you can offer this chakra. Maybe it just needs to rest and stay in that closed position, or maybe there is something that you could do to support it in reopening. Or so any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say exactly what you're saying. Yeah, I think that's perfect. I think it really is just like maybe just being curious and not judging, because I think it can be so easy for us to think like, oh no, there was something there. What was that? And it's like, doesn't matter. Like just kind of like, okay, today it's heavy. Tomorrow it's really open. The next day something might feel heavy again. And it's like so as we were talking about, healing earlier and how things still sort of pop up, it's like sometimes it feels like peeling back the layers of the onion. I don't know if you've heard that, but it really can be. It's like we think we're in this great balanced state, and then because we're in a great balanced state, it's time for us to get to another layer. So it can feel like all of a sudden something's out of balance, and you're like, where did this come from? But it's just like you're peeling back layers. So just kind of.
Yeah, it's all of us embracing the onion, and we're on this journey of the layers and the layers and the layers. Okay, we had one more pop up here, and then I would love to highlight two things that you are offering today. So Beth says, that was so lovely. I feel really refreshed, and I loved the letting go of other people's energy in my feet. I'm barefoot all the time. So yes, I thought that was really powerful for sure.
Okay.
So what'd you say?
Oh no, I said, oh good. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. It just
resonated. Absolutely. I'm so thrilled. So many of y'all were able to jump on, even for a brief moment. I always say, even if you catch a glimpse of one of these videos, what you catch is what you are meant to hear. So even if it's just for 2 minutes, like something in there was meant for you. And those of y'all who were able to watch the whole thing from start to finish, I'm just delighted that you were able to experience Sadira. She's just such a beautiful, beautiful woman and soul. And I feel honored to have her in my life. And so she has, first I want to highlight, she has a guide, like an intuition guide. It's a free guide that is 3 ways women cut off their intuition and get stuck in indecision, and how to turn it around to make decisions easier. So I'm going to post that into our page so that you are able to connect with her information. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop that in the comments now. I'm sure that will work. And then I want to share that Sadira is having her activation or Activate Your Intuition Mastery program. It's going to be starting June 18th. This was the program that I have been a part of with Sadira, and I have absolutely looked forward to and loved every bit of it. So if you are inspired by what Sadira has done today and talked about today, I would highly recommend that you connect with her and talk with her about working with her more intimately. She's just a brilliant, brilliant guide. And I feel like you talk about earlier, you mentioned like bridging the gap. I feel like you have such a brilliant way of bridging and making all of this make sense and helping, really to come back to another word we used, which is trust, like trust in this process and trust in our connection to ourselves. You just know how to help us do it.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Yeah, thank you for saying all of that. It's and then also just really quickly about my course. So it's called the Activate Your Intuition Mastery Program, and it's sort of like intuition is kind of like the top layer of it. Like it's helping you to feel more connected to yourself. It's helping you if you want to connect with your guides, with ancestors, kind of tap into that as well. But there's a lot of like healing work and grounding work and removing success blocks and clearing, blocks to visibility and using your voice. And it encompasses a lot, but thank you very much for telling them about it. I want to mention, I can put like a link maybe to my website. Maybe I have a calendar appointment if you want to just connect with me, complete like no pressure conversation about like what it is that I do and what kind of services I have, or so I could put like a link to that too, so that people know how to connect with me.
I would really appreciate that. So definitely drop in your website, your link to be able to connect with you. I have a feeling that there are going to be many on here that are going to want to have more information.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you, Lynn. Let me think if there's anything else. Oh yeah, the intuition guide. You talked about the intuition guide. We're good. I think that's like, like an hour later, we've got it all covered.
Well, I definitely feel like this will have to happen again. I feel like this group will enjoy having your energy and your wisdom back. And those of y'all who are watching this even recorded, drop in your questions and curiosities over the next week, and I'll facilitate it and make sure Sadira sees the questions and can answer them still, even though if you weren't live, you'll still have that interaction. Yeah. But until next time, thank you so much, Sadira. It was such a pleasure.
All right, thank you.
And y'all have a great day. We'll be in touch soon.